beautiful lecture and this expression of our final lecture of the series. And this is so exciting that we have come to this point. And we look forward to the courses in the fall. And just to remind everybody, we're going to have full courses which consist of 3 sessions each, and it's all lined up beautifully and available on the website. So I really encourage you to check it out. And believe me, a deal to get a course for $30 with credited instructors is really amazing. So really encourage you to check it out. There's courses in pastoral care, Christian education, systematics, interfaith theology. There's just like so many possibilities, Bible, lots of good things. So you'll find something that you're interested in. And we are delighted today to welcome April Burrows. April is a certified dream builder coach, Enneagram coach, and spiritual director. She supports clients to claim the life that they know is the highest expression of their true selves and to live the life of their dreams. For over 15 years, April has worked with individuals and organizations as a spiritual guide, coach, facilitator, and trainer, helping them to hone their deepest passions, purpose, and potential. She does this through inspiring workshops, retreats, spiritual direction, and transformational coaching programs that help clients achieve new heights of meaning. April is also an experienced leader, entrepreneur, and the host of the podcast, Connected on Purpose. Had to check that out. I haven't checked that out yet. April's unique combination of spiritual and secular work with individuals and within faith-based nonprofits and corporate organizations brings a very relatable perspective to all of her work with clients. And April believes that people are extraordinary and each person is a unique expression of God. She knows that when there is new awareness and clarity, purpose and dreams, individuals and organizations can experience breakthroughs, incredible peace, joy, and love. So beautiful. We welcome you, April, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much for reading all of that. I know I just say like a couple things, but that's lovely. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you for having me here today and allowing me to share some of my passion. In particular, I've been invited here to speak to you a little bit about change. And I'm probably coming at this from a different approach than maybe some other training you've done. As Darlene was saying, I've worked in organizations for many years. I've often been brought in as a facilitator, even a mediator. I'm also a trained mediator, but I don't love that work anymore. Mediator, and often it's about trying to change people's minds to get on board with whatever's happening. And the focus goes on the person who is resisting change, so-called resisting change, or making it hard for leadership to move something forward. And so I'm often been invited in to work with that person, and then lo and behold, they're very shocked that I don't even put very much attention on that at all when I'm doing my work. So I've learned over the years that there are some keys to helping groups, organizations, individuals, families, whatever, to manage change in a different way, to see change in a very different way. So rather than it being a problem, it can be something else. So that's my approach to the workshop today. So who has heard of this quote before? Of anybody that's read this quote before? The only constant in life is change. Yeah, so a few hands. I can't see everybody just because of the way my screen is split. So here, maybe I'll just move it. I don't need to see me. I can see some other people. And so this quote is from the Greek philosopher Heraclitus, and it was said around 500 BC. So, the thinking for me is, if this idea that the only constant in life is change, why do we struggle with it so much? Like, what is the reason that we even are talking about it all the time, managing change, So maybe a couple people just share with me, why do you think we talk about change so much, or we struggle with it so much? just pop yourself off of mute and just a couple people share with me. Why do you think that is?
I'll go.
I think people are afraid of change. You stick with what you know because that's better than something, even if it's not working, sometimes that seems better than moving to something different that you don't know.
So, yep, fear of the unknown, a good one. Doug, I think I saw your.
Well, yeah, change is scary because you don't know what's going to happen. That fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
but it's also change also challenges us to get out of our comfort zone. Even in a bad situation, you're more comfortable in that because you know what it is. And people are afraid. You see that in some bad marriages too, where the abused person won't get out of that because this is what they know.
Yeah. And I think there was somebody else. Was that you, Awit? Yeah.
I was going to say sometimes if there's a change in a situation, it also calls on us to change, like our mind or our behaviors. And sometimes we're unwilling to change.
Yeah, those are all excellent. Yeah, we're the fear of the unknown. We're called to change. We don't really want to. We might be focusing on the past. We are afraid of what pain and discomfort that might come with it. There's a sense of like losing control and maybe losing control over something we think we have. As Awit said, the effort it might take. And then there's also this feel of failure. So if I'm going to change, what if it doesn't actually work out? And we also, on the flip side, have this thing about fear of success. What will then be expected of us if we succeed? So there's lots of reasons why, in lots of different contexts, why this fear comes up. So neuroscience research teaches us that uncertainty registers in our brain much like error does. So it means wrong, right? So neuroscience has proven that. So it needs to be, we have this idea that there needs to be a correction because we don't want to feel the discomfort that we felt when change is happening. And so we'd rather kind of put a stop to it because it feels like it's an error. So we do everything we can to correct that error, and that's what our brain is trying to do. So I just want to share with you a little bit of what my hope is for us for the day, or for the next couple hours. And I'm going to speed through a lot of this because I was sharing with Darlene, this is more like a 3-hour workshop condensed into 2. So I'm going to give you lots of information, and Noli asked if I could send some slides. So I will send the slides that make sense to send that you can have. So you don't have to write what's on the slide. I will give them to you after. Although I know some people remember things by writing too, which is great. And I will be actually asking you to do some writing a little bit later on. So you might want to wrangle up a pen and paper at some point. So my intention is to give you the one thing that you need to know about managing change, because I promised that. An understanding of what is happening when change is occurring, to show you what you can focus on, to give you opportunities to discover for yourself what's wanting to emerge in a situation that you might be experiencing, and to give you some confidence in your abilities to manage it. Does that sound good? Like a good focus? Yes? Okay, so here it is. The number one thing you need to know when managing change, you can't manage it. You actually can't manage it. You have to be it. And I know we want to think we can manage it, but we actually can't. And I know being the change is a little bit cliche. It's been used a lot. And that this idea of being the change has been around for a long time. But here's the thing. When people change with change, there's less struggle. When people resist it, they create significant conflict, and that can be internal conflict. It can just be in your own life. And internal conflict around change can show up like anxiety, depression, feeling lethargic, tired all the time. Like that resistance can create a lot. It can create anger, reactions, that sort of thing. But it can also happen in organizations and churches. And I don't need to tell you what happens in organizations and churches, because we always know what happens when change is happening. So as we established, change happens whether we want it to or not, because the only constant is change. But it's also happening because we're always called to grow. That land for people, change is happening because we're always called to grow. So in the ancient text of the Talmud, it says that every blade of grass has an angel leaning over it, whispering, grow, grow, grow. And that little blade of grass will press right through cement, seeking the light, seeking to exist. So that's the same power that is calling the blade of grass to grow, is the same power calling us to grow. And calling us to grow to be the best person we can be. And it's inside of us, just like it's inside the blade of grass. It's the same power speaking to you to become the very best version of yourself. And that's life itself seeking to express itself through you, which means life is always seeking to express ourselves through us and through everything that we're involved in. Group of people, a church, a community. So back to the only constant in life is change. So when like I was saying, when I come into organizations that are looking to make some changes, and like I said, they tend to focus on the resistors. And there has been a lot of, early on when I was doing some of this work, I used to talk a lot about how groups of people, when they're trying to change, have three sort of groups of people with them. The early adopters, the people who kind of follow along those, and then the resistors. And that most of the time we focus our energy on the resistors instead of the people who are in the lead, or the people in the lead and not the people in the middle, which tends to be the majority of the people. But I've watched how that plays out over the last 15 years. And there's something even more important that we can focus on. And as you know, when we're going through change and struggle, as we've been saying, we start to feel that fear of loss and not feeling adequate, or whatever it is that we're feeling when change is happening. So I love this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. And this is by Michael Beckwith. And he says, "We are often pushed by pain until we're pulled by a vision." And this is the same with churches, groups, and organizations. These two energies, the pain of our problems and this burning desire that we want something different, is essential for creating something new. When we notice change in a negative way, it causes us pain, and it starts to make more and more and more pain because we're focusing on the pain. And then when we can see a change sort of positively, instead of through the like misconceptions of what change is, we can start to see how it can lead us to something that we desire. And so this becomes a matter of perspective. What is change? Is change something negative that we need to fear, or that we're worried about the circumstances and conditions around it? Or is it leading us to something that we didn't even know was possible? So it's a matter of where we put our attention. So I'm going to invite you into playing a game with me. So in front of you there, I have a set of 6 blocks, all different colors. And I gotta get my phone here. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to look at everything in the following picture that is yellow. Okay, so you're gonna remember in 10 seconds everything that's yellow. Does everybody have that? Everything that's yellow. Okay, so I have my thing up. I'm gonna put the picture up, and you got to remember everything that's yellow in 10 seconds. Okay, here we go. So look for everything that's yellow, count them. 2, 3, 1. Okay, so let me get rid of this. So how many people counted, like how many, what's your top one? 7, maybe 7 yellow things? I got 6 by Darlene. Anybody more? 7? Anybody higher than 7? I got to try to find people's faces here. Anybody more than 7? Okay, 7 was a lot. Okay, so now I want you to tell me how many things you saw that were red. Whoops. Who saw red things? Anybody see any red things? I'm not seeing any. I'm seeing some laughs, some giggles. Anybody see anything red? Nothing red at all? Okay. So I think that gives you an idea of what we're talking about. So why does this happen? Why does it happen that I told you to look for something yellow? People were able to get up to 7 things in 10 seconds, which is pretty big because you're counting them, and I didn't even tell you to count them at first. It happens because we have an area of our brain that is called the reticular activation system. And it's the part of our brain whose job it is to mediate over all of our levels of consciousness of awareness. So in other words, this reticular activating system's job is to bring into our awareness what it is we're looking for. It's our filter of awareness. And so it helps you see that what we pay attention to is what we seek. So I don't know, I remember once my very first car was a purple Escort. And it was purple. It wasn't just a little purple, it was a lot purple. And I thought I had the most unique purple car ever. And then the next thing you know, everywhere I'm seeing purple cars. I was so disappointed. I never saw purple cars before, they were probably there, but when I bought the purple car, then I'm seeing it. That's the part of my, that's the reticular activation system at work in me. So when we want these changes in results, when we want to experience change differently or move towards a goal or dream, we have to be aware that we have a choice of what we put our attention to. And this increased awareness is important. It's an important part of our learning because it addresses change specifically. And you know we have a greater awareness when we know the pattern. So the one passage that I always think of is seek and ye shall, somebody say what it is. You know what it is, find, right? Seek and ye shall find. Well, you do follow what you're seeking. So if you're seeking conflict from change, guess what you're gonna find? You're gonna find conflict from change. If you're seeking something different from it, you might just discover there's another gift in it. So who has a challenge that they can think of? And you're not going to share these, so don't worry. But I'd like everybody to think for just a second, a challenge they're facing, whether it's in your congregation or in your personal life. It could be at work for some of you, frustration, disappointment, whatever it is. So raise your hand when you have it. Okay. A couple of people who don't yet. Does everybody have one? There's a few people. It's hard for me. I can only see 5 people at once, but I think most people have one. Okay, so you've got a challenge in mind. Okay. So remember the game. So we're talking about focus now. And the idea is that this kind of clarity is power. So now that you know what you know about the brain, you have now been empowered. So you know something different than you did before you knew that, unless you knew that. Some people might have known that about the brain. I don't pretend that it's a new thing, but it might be new to you. So when we're looking for challenges that change can bring, we can only see those things. But when we've looked at a current situation, we can choose to actually look for something different. We can seek something different. So when we put on a new set of glasses, or maybe a way of saying it is changing our paradigm, we can begin to see something different in the changes that we face. So here's an important concept that will help us understand why having this kind of crystal clear clarity is so important. The quality of our life is determined by the questions we ask. So let that sink in. The quality of our life is determined by the questions we asked. Most of the time when we're facing change, we're asking the wrong questions. We focus our energy on things like what will make other people change, how to maybe keep the peace, keeping people happy, not disrupting things, not making some people feel a certain way than the other, or not making ourselves feel that way. So how can we do this? And of course, I mean, it's different for every single situation. But if we flip this into a totally different question, we can come up with the most powerful question of all that we can ask ourselves in any situation. And the question is, what would you love? So take your mind back to the challenge. So everybody raised their hand. I think most people did raise their hand of a challenge from a few slides ago. And so you have the challenge in mind. Ask yourself, what would you love instead? So if the challenge is, I'll share one. I have a challenge right now that my sister is coming from out west, and she has some expectations on my time, and I actually can't meet those expectations. But because she comes so frequently, she always puts a lot of like pressure on it. But I already had plans, so it's a challenge for me. So if I was to say, what would I love instead? I say I would love to find a way to connect with her, even for a little time, to meet my needs for connection with her and her needs for connection with me. So I'm holding that space to see what new idea can emerge for how that would happen. Hers tends to be like days long. I'm thinking I can probably arrange something different. So you see how I'm putting my focus instead of on what used to be. She's my oldest sister. She's the oldest in the family. She's my oldest sister. I'm the youngest. So I was putting all my attention on every time she comes, she has all these expectations on me. See how I'm already creating the potential for conflict? Instead, I'm saying to myself, what would I love instead? And I'm going to ask her that question. I'm going to say, here's what I have. What would you love? And we'll see if we can come together. It totally changes the focus of what we're doing. So ask yourself then in your situation, what would you love instead? What would you love? So just give you a second to think about it and maybe write it down. What would you love? It's almost like you're painting a perfect picture. In our business, when we're starting a new project, we talk about paint it done, so that the people who are working on it know where they're ending. This is almost like paint this done picture of what you would really love. So if you notice it, if you've been able to come up with that question, of what you would love instead, you notice that if I didn't ask you, what do you think you could do? I didn't ask you even what you really would want. I asked you what you would love. And you see how just a change in words, the power of words, the energy changes to creativity and possibility from focusing on what the challenge could be or what you might imagine the challenge is going to be. Okay. So did anybody feel that shift? Okay, one hand at least went up pretty fast and nodding heads. So a shift in energy, it It changes us. Okay, I'm got to get my fingers off this one at a time here. Okay. So what that tells me, of a simple word, a simple change from taking our focus off the challenge and the potential fears that it might create into what we love, it shows with a simple change of one question that we are capable of much more than we know. That simple change changes us. Love changes us. And I love this little picture of the little guy, although I have a feeling it's probably not that heavy, but you get the idea that with one change of a shift of thinking, a shift of a question, we have power to actually change the energy of the thing that we might have been most afraid of into something that we would love instead. So if clarity is power, and if this change in perspective is power, and we are more capable than we imagined or we thought we were, where do we then put our focus on when change is pressing in on us? Do we put our energy and focus on managing the change and the fears that come along with it? Or do we put our focus on what we would love? And it's a choice. So whether we're conscious of it or not, we are always creating, by those same choices, our experiences. And it's really hard to sometimes wrap our heads around it when it comes to like faith communities, because like we can feel like we make our own choices, but we have this collective. But each one of us is a part of that collective. And so what we've created together, we created together. Like it was us. It wasn't some outside force that created it, it was us. And so most of the times we go about life, and maybe I could use church as an example since this is sort of a church-related workshop, is we go about life in church sort of doing what's normal. We try to manage the change. We deal with the joys and the sorrows, and there's lots of them, of course, and we sort of take it as it comes. We just take what comes and we try to do our very best, and we do try to do our very best at what we're doing. But we call that doing life by default. Sometimes we're defaulted into comfortable things, and we've already talked about that, comfortable things that we typically do or we've always done without much consciousness of what we're doing. And this is a pattern we create, and we create it collectively and we create it individually. And when we do the same things over and over again, we literally create neural pathways in our brain to that thing. So our brain is always changing. So we've created almost like, think about it like a path in the woods. The path in the woods, you go over and over and over again, it becomes a really easy path. But a brand new path is harder to go through. And so that's like what our brain's done. Then sometimes we have change that comes along where maybe, somebody has a new idea, or some change is thrust upon us just because of the world. Like we're in that right now. But if you remember back about Michael Beckwith's quote, he says, pain pushes till vision pulls. So something inside us then starts to panic, even if it's something we wanted, because we're literally creating new neural pathways in our brain when we change. It's not that easy path anymore. We're creating something new. We're experiencing something new. And then fear rises up in us. And sometimes we're really excited about these ideas when they happen, but then we don't change. And so we go back to the same thing. So we might even have ideas, but we didn't put any action behind it because of complacency or fear, whatever. And we wonder why we didn't get where we said we wanted to go. And then we become disappointed and complacent about what we're trying to accomplish together. On the other hand, highly successful organizations and people do their lives and mission by design. So that means that we set clear intentions for what we would love, and we consciously actively commit and do the change. So what I've learned during the many opportunities I've had is that just like that blade of grass, we will press through cement and seek the light. The same thing is often true for our dreams and goals. They are often born out of the challenges we face and the pain we experience. So it's a different way of looking at what is trying to emerge through this challenge or this change or this conflict. So remember that challenge I asked you to bring to mind earlier. So we've had the challenge, we've asked the question, what would you love? What if that challenge was actually a sign of what is trying to emerge and evolve and grow into something beautiful? Just what if? If we could ask what if, it also is another sign to ourselves that maybe there's some other way of looking at this. It opens us up to possibility. Does that making sense to people? I just want to kind of check in. The ones I'm seeing are heads nodding yes. If you are really struggling with what I'm saying, because I can't see everybody, if you could just take yourself off of mute, or maybe, actually maybe what would be good is if you message Darlene and she can just interrupt me. Would that work? Darlene, are you okay with that? Okay. So if there's something you want me to go back to, just chat it up. I won't watch the chat, but Darlene will, and then she can stop me. That might just be less confusing. So we live in a universe that speaks to us through two signals of growth: our longings and our discontent. And we experience these feelings of longing when we're desiring something we haven't yet created. And we feel this feeling of discontent when current circumstances, like a change, is something we actually would not like. We wouldn't prefer it. Let's say that we would not prefer that to happen. But both of these, longing and discontent, are catalysts for growth within us. I love this passage. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? It will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. And to me, this verse just gives us faith that whatever we're experiencing can be transformed. So whatever the pain of the problem or the burning desire is for something new, these two energies are essential for creating new results. And it's called, the results are called growth, which is always about what I call becoming. So being and coming forth. Being and coming forth and bringing more and more light, more and more love, more and more of our very best self. Unleashing our gifts into the world. And both these two things, longing and discontent, offer the possibility of doing it. I always feel like life gives us what we need to grow. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little bit of a break because I know I've been talking for quite a long time. Maybe just take a piece of paper and write, like, what are 3 things that stood out to you so far? And maybe I'll just have 2 volunteers who can share. I'll just give you a couple of seconds to, and I'll get a drink of water. What are 3 things that stood out? Okay, Awit?
I think for me, the question, what would you love? Because it's not like, okay, how am I compromising, or what does that person need? I think for me, I don't often come to the question, what would I love? But it does shift my energy to like, oh, okay, rather than thinking, oh, this is conflict or potential for conflict, to think that, yeah, something really positive can come out of it. Something I don't know yet, but what would I love kind of puts me in that space of possibility.
Thank you. So 2 more, like three things. And Darlene, if you see people's hands, can you just call them out? Because I can't see everybody.
Well, I like the quote, we are often pushed by pain until we are pulled by vision. That really resonated with me. I like that expression. I can see how that happens and how I've lived that.
Thank you, Doug. One more.
I thought it was interesting, and I know in my past experience that we spend way too much time focusing on resistors, and it holds everybody else back. That when you focus on the early adopters and those who could be more involved in the change and are willing to give it a try, then I could see that things would move along much better.
Thank you. Okay, take a deep breath. Always good just to have a breath. So clarity is power. So we've talked about that, and we're capable. And now we've talked about where we can put our focus on what we would love. And when we as leaders allow ourselves to get drawn into drama, chaos, fear, and I think Debbie, you just mentioned you've experienced this conflict. Our eyes are not on the vision any longer. So even if we have had something and we've had decided on something, our eyes are completely diverted off of it. So the greatest challenge I'm seeing right now in churches and activist groups, nonprofits of all kind, is this idea of common hour thinking. And instead taking our, so what would be the normal procedure to follow or problem to solve? We often go through this sort of process of what we call common hour thinking. And instead we can begin to use our spiritual gifts to tap into ourselves, to live into that potential. So if we are more powerful than we imagined, and a simple change of our thought can actually change our perspective, we can use those skills and other skills to help us move from the problem into where we put our focus, which is allowing the vision to lead us. So really, we need to stop trying to manage change and be the change by focusing on what we want for our communities and come from, so I said be the change, which means you're actually coming from it within yourself. What does it look like, feel like to come from abundance, from joy, from play, from creativity, from that place from ourselves? So if we take our focus off the problem and onto our potential and onto our vision, we can immediately change our focus. And the answers to whatever we've had perceived the problem will actually come faster, quicker, and deep-seated than they will if we're trying to figure it out from common hour thinking. So what is it exactly that we need to change if we're going to be catalyst, if we're going to be the change, if we're going to come from the place that we want to come from? So let's expand our awareness again by studying the pattern that creates different kinds of results. Well, it creates all results, whether positive or negative. It's called the results formula. So the formula begins like this. Thoughts cause our feelings. So your thoughts cause your feelings, and we all know this. Like if you think about it, if you think you've lost your wallet, right? You're pretty sure you've lost your wallet, and your heart starts racing, and you wonder where you could have left it and how you can maybe figure out where to find it. And then think about when you realize, oh, I left it in my coat pocket. Your energy completely shifts from panic to relief, right? Like you can actually feel that. There's a relaxedness about it. When you think joyful thoughts, right? You think of something happy, we can often bring to our mind like good experiences we've had, or just anything like maybe my birthday party. I often go back to my 50th birthday party because it was one of the best nights I've ever had in my life, and it makes me feel happy. It's the thought I'm having about my birthday party. But when I think about scary thoughts, my heart will beat faster. I don't feel that great. I get a little like heavy feeling in my body. So the actual thoughts create those feelings. So maybe, maybe sometimes we're in a position where we have to go do something and we've left a whole bunch of things undone, and our mind is back in those undone things. And there's a bit of stress and overwhelm because we didn't get everything done. And then if you shift to something like maybe there's a time where you know that you really accomplished something great, and you felt like confident, and you feel capable, you feel like you stand up straighter. Like there's our whole bodies start to react from this thinking pattern that's making us feeling, right? And this is universal law. Your feelings your thoughts create your feelings, and then next, your feelings create your actions. So try this out. Put on like a posture of somebody who's sad. I know it kind of feels weird. We won't look at each other. We'll just do it like, your body goes down, right? Put on literally. And then we all know how to do that. We actually know exactly how our bodies look and our faces look when we're sad. Like we just know that. And it's interesting that we all know that. Nobody had to think twice about how a sad person looks, how you look when you're sad. Now, if you shook it all out, and now this time you put yourself in a position of like a very confident, when you feel very confident, you sit up straight, sometimes even our arms are crossed or our hands are on our hips. Like we feel our body just responds, and we know exactly how we feel when we're confident. So I'm really glad that we know all this. Of course we do. We know what our shoulders feel like when we're feeling confident and strong. And so you can see how our feelings are expressed in our actions, literally by our bodies, right? So that's the first point, as our bodies are responding to it. So now we know that our thoughts create our feelings create our actions, whether it's body or other things. And then, I can't even see my screen here. A second. Did it even come up? Yeah, the results is up there. So then our actions create our results. So I was saying earlier, we created everything. We've created everything in our lives in some way, shape, or form. And we know that. We actually do know that. We know about the law of cause and effect. We've heard that for years. Everybody's heard cause and effect. But most people don't get it. Most people look at the results, their circumstances, their situations, condition, and they call them the causes, right? They call the feeling, like everything that's happening to them, the cause of how they actually feel. We actually call them the B causes. Let me see if I can, so we call them the causes, and really they're the B causes. We start a new, so we'll say things like, I'll try to use some churchy examples. Like, so we can't start this new program because we don't have enough time. So we've decided that the cause is not enough time. We've decided we can't do it. Or we can't go start this thing in the community because we don't have enough people. So we've already decided that we can't do it because or we can't, I don't know, plant a garden because we don't have money. I don't know, I'm making them up, but you get the idea. We can't whatever, because, and we use that. I always want to sing the because and out, or the Yellow Brick Road song when I say that. Where the true cause of all of our results is right here. So it's right here in our head. The results are caused by what we've been thinking. This is what we call the first cause. Because the truth is, we don't not get to think. We're always thinking. We can choose our thoughts, or we can let the old habitual thoughts we've been thinking run our life and our communities. It's really up to us. So if you want to know what you've been thinking, look at your results, because your results never lie. So sometimes that's a bit of one to get your head around, but your thoughts create your feelings, create your actions, create your results. So I love this passage. This is the passage that turned my life around. I was struggling with results in my life because change was thrust upon me, or I was having longing and discontent about something I wanted differently. I knew that I had gifts to share, but yet was struggling to activate them. I had relationships that I wanted to improve. I was done with God. And this passage that I was actually forced to memorize as a child popped into my head one day, and a light bulb went off about it. And it has been the transformation for me. I began to see that conforming to this world was really about when we allow illusions and separation, lack and limitation become the energy that motivated my choices and my actions in the world. And I was only dependent on my five senses, what I could see, taste, hear, smell, you get the drill, rather than my connection to source, my connection to God. We're all transformed when in the midst of our human experience, we remember the truth of who we really are. We are a unique expression of God. And when we allow that truth to shape our choices, then transformation can only happen when we truly believe in that innate oneness with God. So when we realize that we have this inner guidance, which is not one of those five senses, we can always discern what the will of God is, and trust that discernment is always about our highest good. It's always about that. One of the things that I have on my bedroom wall is God always has my back. And I never realized that before, or the universe has my back, whatever the language is for you. It interchanges for me a lot. But that means that no matter what's happening, there is good in it for me. There has to be, because if God is for me, who can be against me? It has to be. I believe that. So if we want to create new results in our lives, then we have to pay attention to our thoughts. And that is something that we call notice what you're noticing. Wheat knows this one well because we talk about this one a lot. So right now, where you're sitting, notice if your feet are in shoes or not, right? Like you can feel probably the chair under your bottom. You can maybe, like, it's really hot here. I have the air conditioning on, so I can feel a little bit of the cool on my shoulders because the air conditioner is right above me here. I can feel that. I can feel the desk under me. So I can notice all these things. I can pay attention to them, or I cannot pay attention to them, right? Like at any given moment. When I say feel your feet, you felt your feet. But before I said feel your feet, did you feel your feet? You didn't even really pay attention to them, right? So notice what you're noticing. And it's the same with your thoughts. So now notice that you have the ability to notice. You get that? So first you're thinking your feet, you're noticing your feet. And now you can notice that you actually have the ability to notice. That's how we notice what we're noticing. And you can do the same thing with your thoughts. You can notice what you're thinking and notice how what you're thinking affects what you're feeling. So this is that first little part of that. So if we can notice what we're thinking, we can notice how we're feeling.
Can I just add something there, April?
You sure can.
I'm just thinking of the gospel today, and it's the woman who'd been bleeding for many years, and she kind of interrupted Jesus as he's on his way somewhere else, see the daughter of Jairus, and he feels someone touch his cloak and says, power just went out of me, so that really rang true when you said that, like that Jesus just noticed the people and everything that was going on around him.
Yeah, I love that that connection, Darlene, because we are more powerful than we realize we are. We are more powerful, way more powerful than our conditioning has helped us to know and believe. So a lot of this work is really about changing that and recognizing how much power we actually have. So I'm going to invite you to sort of experience this a little bit. So I've done a lot of talking, but I'd like you, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to do this in a couple ways. You can use sort of your life as an example, or you can use your church life as an example. Either or. I've created some ideas for both, but I'm going to take you through two of them, and then we're going to pick one and you're going to work on it a little bit. So this is where you can get into this a little bit more. So I'll just demonstrate first with the personal, and then I'll go to the organizational one. So, whoops, get my finger off here. So consider that we have 4 domains, and I know that there's lots of trainers that, I've had up to 32 different pieces, but this is the model that I use is to help me reflect on my choices in different parts of my life. It's my choices we're talking about in these 4 domains: your health and well-being, your love and relationships, your vocation, and your time and money freedom. We are having results in all of these areas right now. Some areas you may really love the results you're having, and other areas not so much. The results we're getting in these areas of life are a perfect reflection of our awareness in these areas. And here's the good news: no matter what the results, no matter how big the challenge it might feel, no matter how long the old results have been in place, that was a big one for me, you absolutely have the power to create exactly the results you would love and to live the life you would love and in our community. So I've translated this a little bit into community life because I do a lot of that work too. So we also can have 4 domains of our faith community life: spiritual and emotional health, relationships and leadership, mission or sacred service, and time and money freedom. So I'm going to invite you to now do an assessment of both of these. So first, I'm going to invite you to assess out of 5, on a scale of 1 to 5, what is your satisfaction with spiritual and emotional health of your community, relationships and leadership, mission and sacred service, and time and money freedom. And we're not sharing these, so this is just for you to do a bit of an assessment. So out of these 4, at 1 to 5, how would you rate yourself, your community on this? So 1 being satisfied, 1 being not satisfied, and 5 being completely satisfied. Oops, I am sorry, I didn't put those up on the screen. So here they are again. Me and my 2 screens. So there's the 4. Okay. If you need me to go back, I can. And then here's the 4 of to do a life assessment for yourself, your own personal life assessment. So here's 4 areas. How would you rate yourself? Your satisfaction in these 4 domains of your life. 1 being not satisfied and 5 being completely satisfied. So it's just giving us a touchstone right now. Okay, so some of you might feel in some areas of your faith life or like your faith community or your personal life, you know, as you're assessing your satisfaction with it, there might be some things that come up for you that feel maybe like a failure. Like I know that I had some of that, or it's a real struggle for you to even think about it and name it. But I offer this. Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of equal or greater benefit. Equal or greater benefit. So there's a seed in something, in everything. So I would say every person and community has a dream somewhere inside. And often it's there and active, but not even named. But somewhere in there, every person and community has a dream inside of it. And these dreams are perfectly tailored for you because they're seeking to come through you. So then this next step is about giving ourselves permission to dream large, sort of larger than you normally would, and to tap into what it is that you would really love in these areas of your life and these areas of your community. So it brings us to a key, our first principle in building these dreams. And the first principle is designing your dream. When you would love different results in the life, you have to plan for them, just like you have a clear blueprint when you want to build a house. The same thing is true with dreams. Without a clearly defined blueprint, you cannot build it. You don't even know how to look for what it is that you need. So just to reiterate my point about dreams, there's a few quotes, people that you would, I'm sure would know. You're never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. And I love this one in particular for faith community because I often hear that we're too old. Well, not according to C.S. Lewis. Where there is no vision, people perish. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. We all know what Harriet Tubman did. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And Howard Thurman, Dr. Martin Luther King's mentor, said, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and then do that. Because the world needs more people who have come alive." So when we talk about leading and managing change, where does it start? It starts with us as the leaders. When we have vision for our own lives and passion and we come alive, then we stop putting the focus on the challenges and the change, and we start putting focus on being a beneficial presence on the planet. So, when someone is designing a blueprint for a house, they go out and they consult an architect and an interior designer, and they get professional tips, unless you're somebody who can actually do this for yourself, I suppose. But there's always new things out there. And that helps create like this powerful inspirational place. So as you begin to design your vision or your dream, the life you'd love living, there are some professional tips I can share with you about how to do that. So I'm going to give you a choice, like choose one out of the 8. So I maybe need to go back to that slide. Let me go back to that slide. So we have the 4 domains of faith, community, and then we have the 4 domains of life. So hopefully you've written them down because you assessed them and you gave yourself a rating. I'd like you to just pick one for now to work on. Just one area. So we're just going to try it out for you to see. So hopefully you've picked one. So is that good? Is everybody kind of picked one of the areas to just work on doing just you know, we're going to do a little bit of dream building here to help you see what it feels like and what thinking you have behind it. So does everybody have one? Anybody have one? I don't think I've seen any hands yet. So yes, some heads are nodding. Okay, you picked some. Great, thank you. Just want to make sure everybody's with me. Okay, let me get back to. Okay. So we've got either the designing your dreams in the community or your life. So this is kind of like priming a pump. I don't know, I've done that. I don't know, maybe that shows my age. Where I actually had to prime a pump. Lived on a farm for a long time, so maybe that's not the best example for some people who are younger. So this is kind of like we're getting the pump going. And so we're going to look at, so maybe get a fresh piece of paper if you can. And what you're going to do is you're going to start thinking about what you would really love that to look like. So say it's spiritual health. What does it look like and feel like to live, to have a thriving spiritual life? Or maybe you'd want to do that within your congregation as another way of looking at it. What does that look like? Prayer, meditation, play. Maybe for you it's dance. I don't know. It could be anything. Whatever that looks like for you. What does it look like, feel like? What exactly are you doing? So like the blueprint, if you don't put details on it, it's not concrete for you to even know when it shows up for you. Or maybe you chose like the sacred service piece of your church. What unique gifts are you seeing happen in your community or through your community? What benefit do you have for each other to create like a just and loving sacred space? Or maybe it's in your personal life. Maybe there's something on your health that you'd really like to improve, that you have some longing and discontent about. So just be careful to paint the picture in that I would love. So the top of your page, now write, I am so happy and grateful now that. And what you're going to do is you're going to start painting a picture in the positive. Remember, what we focus on, we create. So keep it in the positive. One good example is, you know, I want to lose weight. It's not very specific. It's been one of mine. But I really would love to feel healthy and strong in my body and know that I could go for a 2-hour hike without any trouble. That's what I really want. It really isn't about I want to lose something. It's I want to gain something. I want to gain something in my life. So make it into the positive. What would you really love? What would you be really grateful to have had? And now I'm going to stop rambling on and give you some quiet. Remember, you're painting a picture like a blueprint in that area of your life or in your community. What would you really love to see? Another 30 seconds. Okay. That gives you a little taste of it, of what it's like to start blueprinting what you would love. And that might have been like a reflection on one of the challenges or the earlier challenge, or it could be something new for you. Is anybody willing to share a little bit about what they would love? And I'd like you to start by sharing, I am so happy and grateful now that, and just one thing. Is anybody willing to share? And remember, if it's about your faith community, we're practicing here, right? So, you know, it's not written in stone. It's just, it's giving our brain a chance to dream big. Elizabeth, feel free to pull off or to unmute yourself. Oh, you're still muted.
You're still muted.
I'm getting used to the
Oh.
iPad because I have been using my laptop beforehand, so it's a whole new game for me. And anyway, I have focused on health and well-being, and I've been trying during COVID, and I'm almost 2 weeks from being able to get back to what I would call my real life or life itself after my second vaccine. So it's a very small goal, but I'd like to be able to walk the beach as I used to. And I can't do that with arthritis at the moment, but I have my poles, my walking poles, and it's possible. And I'm grateful that it is possible and that I will have that life or whatever you want to call it back in whatever form it takes. And I'm very grateful about that.
Lovely. I'm so happy and grateful that I can watch you walk the beaches. That's wonderful. Anybody else willing to share?
Wheat.
Thank you. I did one for our church leadership. So the relationships and leadership part. And I'm so happy and grateful now that when leaders show up, they have joy and good energy, and they are committed to connecting with others.
Thank you.
Debbie.
Mine is sort of, well, definitely to do with church as well. I find that I spend a lot of time doing church work that is a source of conflict with my husband and I. So I am very happy to say that I will now structure my time that I devote to church work, because everybody knows it is a bottomless pit, and that I will focus more on my improving my time management so that I spend more time with my husband and doing the things that I need to do, instead of sometimes church things that I enjoy doing, but it does, when it creates conflict, it's not so great.
So is it, I am so happy and grateful now I have abundant time with my husband and my church life,
Right.
or a
Yeah.
balance or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it gives a focus to your, yeah. Anybody else? I don't want to. Sometimes saying it out loud is a good thing for us to do.
I can share one. I'm thinking about my vocational life, and I've always said I wanted half-time ministry and half-time teaching / writing. That would be my ideal. And I just, the longing and the discontent has been irritating me for years. So it's nice to hear today that that's a normal part of growth process. And sometimes you have to remind yourself of that. So for me, I said that I am grateful and thankful that I have built a life where I have the gifts to create the vision I have in my head.
Lovely, thank you. Okay. Anybody else? I don't want to move on too fast because
Paula?
a lot of talking. So was there somebody else, Darlene?
Paula, yeah.
Okay, Paula?
Yes, I think mine is sort of similar to Debbie's, but not exactly. I'm very grateful and thankful that I have a good supportive church community, and I would definitely miss involvement with my church for sure. But I was really struggling because I have been so busy with church things over the years that I wasn't feeling filled up anymore, and I was starting to feel resentful. So I've been making a point of choosing what things I will be involved in so that it's feeding my soul and making me grow into a more positive, better person. So not on so many committees anymore, even though it's hard to say no when there's so few. I just stick to my guns. And so I made that decision, and I feel like that's working for me because now I'm feeling more interested. There's more of my energy that is positive going into the things that I am involved in. So
some more happy and grateful of a picture of a future where there's one you've already had there, Paula, is that there's balance with our church work. You only hear this in church communities. No, volunteer work can take up a lot of space for sure if we're not careful. So, anybody else? Okay, well, let me share with you the second principle then in dream building. So it's deciding for your dream. So it's been proven that highly successful people and organizations are willing to decide for what they would love, even in the absence of knowing how to bring it about. So some people want to know every single step of the way before deciding. They want like the green lights, like clear all the way down the road before they'll even back out of the driveway. The key is to really make a firm decision for what you want before you're willing to bring your dream into reality. So maybe I'll have, if I could ask for a volunteer. So let me show you what I mean by deciding for your dream and not knowing how it can happen. So can I have a volunteer to read something for me? I promise it'll be easy. Who's willing to read? Nobody? Okay, Doug, thank you. Okay, I'm going to put a slide up and I'm going to ask you to read it to everybody.
Wow. This is that, according to research at Stanford University, it doesn't matter what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole.
Oh my goodness, that was good. That was really good. Thank
Done
you
this
so
one
much,
before.
Doug. It took you a second, but once you got it, you really got it, right? So thank you so much for reading that. But isn't that incredible? Looking at this paragraph, it would seem like it's completely unillegible, right? But as Doug showed, when the first letter and the last letter are in the right place, the middle can be jumbled up and your mind can still make sense of it and read it. It's the same thing with our visions. If we know where we want, if we have a strong blueprint of where we're going, and we've decided, which is the other end of it, then the middle starts to fall in place. But if we don't decide for it, we're not even moving in that direction. It's back what I said earlier, is that sometimes we have sort of get excited about something and then we take no action towards it because we really haven't decided that it's what we want. So how do we know whether or not the vision that we have? So each one of you had a little piece, and some of you shared your piece. How do you know if it's in line with spirit, basically? And here's how you know. You ask yourself, does it give you life? Does it align with my or our core values? Does it cause me to grow? Do I need help from a higher power? And does it have good in it for others? So when you create a vision or a dream or a goal in the 4 domains, whether it's in your personal life or whether it's in your community's life, if it has these 5 things, it can't not be good. It can't not be healthy, because we're meant to be contributing. We're also meant to receive life. We're not meant to just give. And I liked hearing some of what you were saying about how much you give to church. You know, we have to think about that. We're meant to have a full life and have health in all areas of our lives. Okay. So the last principle in building our dreams is befriending our fear. And we've talked about this a lot, of how change can bring up fears. And so remember that when we talked about that earlier around what brings up fears. And so what does this mean, befriending fear? It means that we can have fear, but we don't have to let fear have us. So we can have it, but it doesn't have to have us. We're not going to be able to be completely fearless. I know that there's a word fearless, but something in our lives, in some area of life, fear comes up, but it doesn't have to be the controlling factor. I think I had a slide earlier from Napoleon Hill, but another quote from him I really love is, the value of your decision depends on the courage you have to make them. So making a decision, sometimes we're willing to make the little decisions in our lives, but sometimes we really did not make the bolder decisions. So when we decide for a dream, like you've already all done, there's little pieces of it. There's a part of you that says, yes, I'm in, I'm doing this. And there's another part of us that immediately follows, and sometimes it's even before, that says kind of like, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. You tried it before, or how are you going to do that? Or where are you going to get the money? Whatever it is. And sometimes it's from our community, our surroundings, our environment as well, that is worried about us and doesn't want us to change for whatever reason. So notice the part of you. So this is back to noticing the noticing. Whoops, whoops, whoops. Me and my fingers on this. Whoops, come on. What part of us, notice it, says, heck yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going for this. I'm going to make this happen, right? There's a part of us that says that. So pay attention. That part of us is inside of us. And then there's a part of us that you might be noticing that's sort of nagging. It's kind of like, yeah, right. Who do you think you are? You don't have what it takes. What if you fail? That's a big one. That's the voice of fear. It's the part of us that wants to stay status quo. It's the part of us that's using that part of our brain that's created that crevice that is really rather not build that new path in our brain. That's the part of us. And we can choose which path we take. And it's kind of like walking. So we all know this story. When we're little, we start out being non-walkers. And as non-walkers, we saw people walking around on their hind legs instead of on all fours like we did when we were little. And we wanted that level of freedom for ourselves. We wanted to be upright, to not be on the floor. So you rose up and you locked your eyes on whatever it is, whether it was your mother or a toy or whatever, and you took your best shot and you started walking towards it. But what did you do next? The first many times you fell down, but yet you kept taking more and more steps. And when we're learning to walk, we didn't even think about ourselves. And when we get older, we get afraid of falling down. We stop trying. So as soon as we fall down once, we don't get up and pick ourselves up and go for it again. We don't, when we were little, we didn't fall down and say, well, I guess I wasn't meant to walk. Like we didn't do that. We just kept trying and trying because we wanted it so bad. We decided that we are going to walk. And finally, of course, we all became walkers. So we learn to walk by falling down. That's how we learn to do this dream building work. It's not going to be perfect. It's a discipline. It's a trying again and again. So here's a couple examples of, I picked some that I thought you would know, of people who failed many times and then succeeded. The fellow from Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I've read many of these, Chicken Soup for the Mother's Soul, that book proposal, Jack Canfield's book proposal, which was, I don't remember how many short stories in it, was rejected 144 times. And now there are 250 different versions of Chicken Soup for the Soul all around the world in 40 different languages. So what would have happened if they had said, oh, I guess it's not good enough at first or second try? 144 rejections. Sometimes I don't think I have that stamina, but they did. They believed in it. They made a decision it was going to happen. So Walt Disney was fired from his job at the newspaper for lack of imagination. Lack of imagination. Can you imagine? And now we know, of course, of Disney, the empire. It's worth $130 billion. A little bit much. We don't all need that amount of money, but he said he didn't have any imagination. It's hard for us to even fathom knowing what we know now. So fear and failure are prerequisites for addressing change and achieving our dreams. All of these success stories have had that experience of failure. In fact, fear and failure are prerequisites. So when we come up against ourselves saying, well, what if I fail or what if I can't do it? Let our response be like that little kid, bring it on, bring it on. We might fail, but if we do, we'll rise up again and keep going until we actually succeed. So, how do we keep giving power to the part of us that wants to move forward? The part of us that has made that decision when we're hearing those voices. So there's a whole process that I take people through, and I can't go through the whole thing in this session. But for the purposes I'll give you one. Remember where your attention goes, your energy, does anybody think of what that could be. Where your attention goes, your energy. Who wants to make a guess?
Follows.
Follows, yep, or flows. Yep, where your attention goes, your energy follows. So whenever you're finding, if that fear comes up and you give it the attention, guess what you're going to get? You're going to feel more fear. You're not going to move forward. You're going to be paralyzed, frustrated, whatever. So when you notice your thoughts going towards like limitations or all the energy is going towards the challenge, interrupt it. In fact, my trainer said, what did she use? She said something like, "Hello, thought, I interrupt this broadcast." she was getting it so badly, she had to stand up and stomp her feet and said, "I interrupt this broadcast. I'm not listening to this anymore." And she had to refocus the conversation and the thoughts on what she wanted on her dream and take action towards it. So that's what we can do. We can reconnect with our dream. We interrupt it. Another thing that we can do if something comes up is, and this can work really well in community too. Something comes up and just say, can we make a date with it in a week? And let's see how we all feel about it. And you commit to keeping that date with it. So if fear comes up for you, you say, I'm going to have a date with you on Saturday. I'll think about the fear. And normally by the time you get to that, you don't even remember really what you were afraid of. You just refocus your energy on what you would love. And then by the time you get to your date with the fear, you're like, it's disappeared. And we can always put things on hold for just a little bit. It doesn't mean you're denying it. It just means like give your brain a chance, give your systems a chance to experience the new thing before you give all your energy to the fear. And as we do that over time, we'll find that the old paradigms kind of fall away, and we've developed this new neural pathway in our brain that we can more easily take at any given moment. Okay, so I'm going to pull this right back around and talk a little bit more about like leading change through the idea of we can focus on the change, or we can focus on the crisis, or we can focus on the challenge, or we can focus on a vision, something that we would love instead. And that can be like a big vision, or it can be a small things. Just we can literally say, well, what would we love to create here? So if somebody brings a challenge, what would we love instead? What would we love to create here? And start focusing on it. And just because we're having the conversation doesn't mean we fully, like everybody's decided, but it starts to change the energy of what is possible. So here's some things as leaders we can do. And if we do these things when change is thrust upon us, or when we're trying to navigate some decisions, we can assess where we're at accurately and honestly. So we did that assessment. Remember that out of 1 out of 5, we've done that assessment of where we are in the 4 domains, either in your faith community or for yourself. We did it for both. So if we assess it accurately and honestly with no judgment, it's just facts. That's all it is. It's your own facts. It's like, okay, here's where we are. So as leaders, to accurately assess where we are, and then to have a clear vision. So basically on one end, you've got where you are, and on the other end, you've got a vision. And how we think about things and how we engage with things is what's in between. So we also need to be careful to suspend the how. So as long as we have the vision and the assessment of where we're at, we don't need to know the how right away. And sometimes we actually limit our possibilities of this bold vision because we're so focused on the how, and the circumstances and conditions don't look like the how could possibly work. So we need as leaders to really suspend the how and make sure that that vision is really powerfully energized before we even get into what we call, bridging or scaffolding between where we are to where we want to go. And the next thing is to see any opportunity or any challenge as really an opportunity for growth. I think I wrote that question a little bit wrong, but that's the idea, that there's an opportunity and call to growth within any challenge. And the next thing we can do is we can normalize, and you've heard me throughout today normalizing change. Change is the only constant. It's going to happen. So if we start to normalize it, we take the energy out of it and we put it onto what could be trying to emerge. Remember that blade of grass pushing through the cement. There's this energy, this God source within us calling us to grow, grow, grow. So if we can put our energy on that, it will become clear what is trying to emerge out of this situation. So also be willing to fail, fall, get up, fall, get up. It's not going to be perfect. It never will be. It wasn't meant to be. We would learn so much less if everything we did first was perfect. So be willing to fail and celebrate every little success. As leaders, focus our energy on growth. Don't be afraid of accountability, both the giving and the receiving of it. And that's, I have found, be a really challenging one in faith communities, is holding each other accountable to what we said we would do. And when we hold each other accountable, we're actually saying we believe people can handle the accountability. And sometimes we think that people can't, but they can. Check in with your vision regularly and continue to clarify it. So as we work and we put like pictures around our visions and our dreams, more and more becomes clear about what we would really love. Like it becomes more and more detailed. And then we actually start to see that it's actually happening. So the more detail you give it, the more you're going to be able to pick up on what is actually starting to emerge. And then as always, as leaders, we need to communicate, 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 communicate. There's nothing like transparency and communication. Okay, so that's sort of in a nutshell. There's a lot of pieces, like I said, I couldn't sort of fit into this whole piece, but really the trajectory is change our focus from focusing on change and challenge over to what we would love instead. And every time we do that, and it's a practice, and I have to practice it every day, every single day. But when we do, we start to create more and more of that freedom in our life. And we don't get hooked into so many challenges that we face, and we can start to live more peacefully, creatively, and joyfully. So I'm gonna now open it up for some questions. I wanted to leave lots of space for that. Maybe what we'll do, why don't we share, I wasn't sure how long we would have, but why don't we, I did a sort of in the middle, I shared like, what are 3 things that stuck out to you from the first part, and maybe I'll ask you what are 3 things that stood out for you on this end part, and then we'll do a round of sharing. Let's start with that, and then we can do questions. So take a couple minutes and just write some notes on what stood out for you.
Did you want to just stop sharing your screen? So that
Okay. Got to figure out which computer am I sharing it on? Like this one. There we go.
Thank you.
Thanks for the idea. Okay, so what stood out for folks in this second sharing, or maybe the tie into the first? Alwit?
I like the exercise that you made Doug do of reading that passage, because then it does kind of show, like, know where you start from. So that's the first letter. And then have this picture of where you want to go. And that's the last letter. And that the middle can be jumbled. But if we have those 2 pieces, we can move forward. Like it's enough to start and take that first step. So I think, yeah, that was a good example to show how if we have these things, we can move forward. We don't need to know the how, because I think the how can stop us from moving forward. Like, well, we don't have enough money, or we don't have enough people. And then, you know, the mind is like then we're focused more on the negativity. But yeah, I think working on the vision and knowing that vision, at least then we have something to move towards. So I liked how you made Doug a guinea pig for that.
He volunteered, I didn't make him. Yeah. And you know, like I said, with the vision, it's only powerful if we need help from a higher power. When we get into the how, we're doing it all on our own. You know, we're not needing each other. We're not looking to God. It's, you know, it's pretty much set out what we can and can't do. And we can't change the world if we don't think beyond our current circumstances and conditions. Darlene?
Three things that come to mind for me. One is I'm a big Madonna fan. When I'm working out, I usually listen to Madonna. And I just think of a phrase from one of her songs, I believe in the power of love. And just how nice it is to be able to say that out loud. And, you know, as Christians, we're called to say that. So, but it's hard sometimes because love isn't this simplistic thing. It's complicated and conflict driven sometimes. And it's all of the above, but it's just to be able to say that is so nice. And I've learned too, and I think today has helped me a lot to say, it doesn't have to be a 5-year strategic plan. You know, I really think that the strategic plan language drains people sometimes. So sometimes if we can come up with something that's invigorating people, that like we found a project that we're going to do. We're actually doing a book, Indigenous study guide for the fall. And all of a sudden we have 10 people in a small congregation who signed up to do this. And it's really encouraging, not just to me, but I think to everybody else. And it won't be everybody, but that's okay. And we're going with the people who want to move ahead with the change. And maybe that will kind of have an effect on other people as well. And to respect choice, you know, I think that's really important. And when I was doing youth ministry work years ago, I learned that whoever shows up, that's the people who are meant to be there. And so that's really good to remind ourselves all the time. And the other thing is the dream never dies, but the dreamer. Now that's a song, but it reminds me of the quote from Harriet Tubman that, you know, it's my responsibility actually as a creative person to keep myself nourished and to keep myself going, because that's a good example also to other people. And if I'm depleted, then I have nothing to give anybody else. So refilling our cups, being good to one another, taking care of our boundaries, all of that is part of that for me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Um,
Doug?
April, I think one of the things is for me outstanding is how you said. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm just looking at the notes that I quickly made. I thought, my goodness, I think this is a whole weekend, 8-hour-a-day seminar.
This is
like 3 days
actually, it's a part of a 12-week program I run.
Well, I can believe that. This is, I mean, I couldn't help myself. I kept on going back to various things that you started to say because I didn't have enough time to mull it over.
Mhm.
And the very first thing is the only constant in life is change. Well, as a scientist, I know that change is only an attempt for homeostasis to go back to that which is constant, which is never constant because it's always adapting to the circumstances being push and pull. So, but I enjoyed a lot of this. Unfortunately, you gave me too much to think about, and there goes my timing for the rest of the week. I'm going to blame a week for not jumping in to read, by the way.
Paula?
I think for me, this isn't really surprising. I mean, it's something I've often thought about anyway, but it shows a person how powerful our thoughts are. Because our successes, our failures, everything seems to start and depend on what's going through our head. You know, and if we can really tap into what we're thinking soon enough, I think it can make some major shifts in the way we even see outcomes, right? Like even saying the word growth. Well, growth doesn't always mean growth in numbers of people, right? So it's learning to understand what those words mean as well. But it's just amazing how our thoughts have such a profound effect on everything. And if there's one thing I want to be better at, it's catching where my mind is actually going. Because if I can catch that, it will help my outcome a lot more.
Yeah. And that's why we use the word, what would you love? It's not really about numbers or like, everybody's different what they would love. If we follow what we love, everything would be different. But most of the time, people don't follow what they love. Debbie.
One of my favorite quotes is, and I think it's from a Negro spiritual, but it was in a book I read by Howard Thurman, and this is a loose quote: "Don't be afraid to step into troubled waters. It's God who's troubling the water." And I often think that is what some of the discomfort that we have is God pushing us to grow and change and do things differently than what we've been doing, and that it helps to quell the fear, I guess.
Yeah, I love that quote too.
I think I saw a wheat and I saw Hubert.
A wheat, I think, went earlier. And sorry, who did you say after? I missed that.
Hubert. Hubert?
Okay.
Oh, it's because it says Anne. I'm sorry, I didn't. It says Anne, so I'm sorry.
I couldn't find the little hand to click on. But April, I like the my takeaway is the what would you love, and I like the example you gave about your sister coming to visit and establishing that compromise, and I think that's key in order to sort of approach change, because things can absorb your time, and it runs into a whole muck of confusion without accomplishing anything. But I think I like that part if you're able to establish a compromise somehow so that you get a piece of a satisfaction as well as the other person. And the other takeaway for me is the clarity, the power of clarity, because sometimes, especially for me, an older person, some changes doesn't make sense, and it's really tough to sort of just go along with it. So if we can get some clarity, I think we can experience that power. And perhaps even with me, if I see the need for a change and able to explain it better so that the other side can see a clearer picture, I think that would solve a lot of problem. But in terms of change, I think it's kind of really hard sometimes for some people.
Yeah.
In my personal
Yeah.
life,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, in my personal life, I enjoy my job and I worked over my time of retirement, but then they changed the management system, and that sort of confused me. I couldn't see the sense in it, so I just decided I've had enough, and I just give them my notice of retirement and I left.
Sometimes we have to make those choices. Yeah. Noli?
There are two Bible verses. I don't know, but the thought is this. I like those two verses that says, the renewing of your mind. Jesus said that. We have to be renewing our mind. And then for change to come, with the wine and the new wine and the new wineskin, right? If we want a new wine, we have to change. Our wineskin, us, has to change in order for that wine to come in and to change us, right? And that is my uh, um, let's say, motto in life. I love change. I'm afraid of change, but the fear is what the heck? Let's just do it. Whatever it is that's out there, someone is guiding me, right? If for me that is something that's bad, I will ask him, what? You have something for me. And then down the road, I will realize that, oh yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, like that. And uh, going back to uh, to that paragraph that's jumbled letters, it's the vision, right? You can read the word, but you only know the first word and the first letter and the last letter. It's like, but you know the word, but you want to get that word right, but you have to dive into it and fix it, right? You have you have to get into the water, dirty your hands and fix it, and it's in that fixing that you learn, right? And when you and our vision as a church in our life, uh, whatever we do must go towards that vision, and whatever learning we do, that we learn in whatever failure in fixing that one letter, and then with, oh, it's not it should be A, no B. Oh, so we decided it's B. Now let's go to the next letter. Then we struggle with that letter, right? In our church, no, it should be like this, it should be like this. No, it should be then we have to then we have to uh, for some people, they look at that as a bad thing, like the argument, the challenge, the proving that you are right. This is right. This is right. But that is the learning process, right? And when I look at the New Testament, all the disciples, when Jesus uh, died and going to heaven, right? Where they're all arguing, arguing, right? But here, but from 12, it's now the whole world. But we're still fixing it, right? We're still not done. We're still fixing
You're
it.
still not done. That is true. That is true. And that Sanford paragraph, it also reminds us that if we don't accurately reflect where we are, so sometimes there's a vision that's created that actually people think they've actually arrived at it. And so they don't see the need for change. It's like, we're already this, we're already missional, we're already loving, and they haven't taken a real honest look at where they're at. So they don't even know what to do to grow to be more like that. And so that's the other thing about that particular exercise, is it's a reminder that you need the beginning and the end. You can't just have the end, or you can't read the word. You need the beginning and the end. You need an accurate assessment, and you need the vision. Sorry, I quickly saw something flash. Oh, let me get
Just think it's Anne and Elizabeth.
Oh, Anne and Liz. Okay, thank you. Anne?
Well, many things that people have already mentioned. I was thinking the same thing, but the caption with the little child walking and thinking nothing about failure, thinking nothing about what other people are going to think. And as Jesus said, we are to become as little children. And I think that's the passage that popped out at me at that time, that we tend to, what are good people going to think if it doesn't work, and for change and so on. So, as I say, along with the other things people were saying.
Yeah. Besides, regret of when we haven't been kind or something like that. Often our other biggest regrets are fear of when we wanted to do something and we didn't, out of fear because of what people would think. That's often a big part of our regrets. I know when I was in grade 8, I wanted to try out for a play, and it was a musical, and I stood outside the door. There was auditions. I stood outside the door, and the person before me I thought was so much better, and I chickened out, and I regretted it for a very long time. It did not set me up for courage after that. And it's that one thing I'm like, I lean on that now. I'm not having that kind of regret again. So I use it as a way to fuel when I'm feeling afraid to step up and step out. I use that. I had regret then. Elizabeth?
I think we're not called to be comfortable in the pew. We're called to not to be complacent and not to take things for granted. And also, as uncomfortable it is and as hard as change is, we have no choice. We need to change. That's it.
All right. So I think everybody's had a chance to share, which was lovely. Does anybody have a closing question or anything?
We're just about at time, so it has to be quick.
Okay. Well, I'll just leave you with this. I decided before I started this that, this denomination is my denomination. And so I do have, if anybody, loves the kind of dream building material, that I do this work with individuals on their own lives in the 4 quadrants. And I have a 12-week program I run. So if you're interested at all, I'm offering free strategy sessions, which are, I normally charge about $250 for them. So I'm offering you free strategy sessions just to explore, maybe do a little bit more on your vision. I can help you work on that a little bit and just to see if maybe using the Dream Builder program would be a fit for you. So anyways, I just offer that to you if that's something that you would love. I'll just put my email in the chat here. And you can just email me and we can set you up an appointment.
Such a generous offer. Thank you, April.
Could I just share one thing kind of on that very quickly? That at Sugar Bush, this is something that we're doing. We're working on our individual visions for our life, our health, our relationships, our time and money freedom, our vocation, but we're also thinking about it as a church. So it's a process that we're trying to do both, because we also believe that a healthy church is full of healthy people, people who are looking for balance and joy and love. And so what April's offering too can also help the church. So I just want to bring that up.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you. And I just want to say a big thank you to everybody. This is number 6, so our final session in the lectures that we've been offering. It's been a tremendous success in my eyes, and just the ways in which we've all been able to come together, get to know one another in new ways. It has been a gift to me, and I know everybody who's been here. And today, for me, April, it was so nice that it was a non-churchy kind of conversation, but still applies to the church. And it's good to lift ourselves out of that kind of little cocoon we get into sometimes and be able to see kind of another vision. So thank you for that. I think you've given us some tools that we'll be able to use as we go forward. So, but a big thank you to everybody who's been along. You've all pretty much been along for the ride so far. So, and more to come in the fall, but a big thank you to you, April. I think you've really given us a lot of food for thought.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Noli is going to be in touch with you about some notes, and we'll make sure that those are distributed to everybody. And take Rachel, take April up on her offer about those free sessions. That's a great thing. Thank you, everybody.
And in about 2 days, you can watch this in our YouTube,
right
on our website, for review.
Exactly, and all the videos are there. If you've missed anything, all the sessions are there for you to please. And if you want to share them with people, that's okay too. We're not really in this for the money. We're in this for being able to learn and move together and create kind of some new movement or continue the movement that Jesus started. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, we hope to see you in the fall for our courses.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks, April. That was great.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure to be here.
Thanks, April.